So what are we going to learn in this class? We're going to learn about leadership. We're going to learn about innovation. We're going to learn about what I believe causes innovation to occur. And how can you create an environment that inspires more creativity and more innovation? Well, let's ask ourselves this question about innovation. What is innovation? Innovation is ideas, but if you run any business for a long enough period of time, you're going to get lots of ideas. Your customers are going to give you ideas. Your employees are going to give you ideas. You're going to have ideas. And most of the ideas that come along will suck. They're not going to be good ideas. But occasionally you'll get one that bubbles to the top and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. We should try that. Now, when you try it and it works, we'll talk about what that means that it works later in another part of the course, probably in the second lecture. I think we talk about this stuff, goals, guardrails, things of that nature. When you know that it works, that's an innovation. When it actually causes a change to occur in the people that your organization is set up to serve, that is an innovation. So how do you create that environment so that you elicit more innovation from people? That's what we're going to talk about. So I've given you a couple of things to watch. And the way I'm structuring the course, I am delivering a lot of reading to you guys. So I've got some books that are in the process of being scanned in, just some chapters. All of the work that I'm going to have you, almost all of the work that you're reading was written by PhDs. So it's been written and it's backed up by some significant bodies of research. And a lot of the folks have gained some fame. They've published books. It's in the social sciences because, again, I think leadership is all about people. So we're going to learn a lot about social science, the science of human intrinsic motivation, which is the foundation of this course, the science of human intrinsic motivation. It's called self-determination theory. That you might want to write down, self-determination theory. It comes from two researchers from the University of Rochester, actually, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. And they wrote their original theory in the 70s. And since then, if you do a quick search on Google Scholar, you'll find tens of thousands of papers written on self-determination theory. It's no joke. It's been around for a long time. It's been validated. It's based on the foundations of going all the way back to Maslow, who was really the father of positive psychology. So Maslow started the trend, and then there's been several researchers and psychologists since Maslow that have kind of tweaked it and improved it. But it's really about needs, the meeting of needs. And in the self-determination theory, they've determined there are three, and have proven that there are three core needs that we have as people in order to maximize our intrinsic motivation. These are the needs of, here, I'll draw it for you. These are the needs of autonomy, the needs of competence, and the needs of relatedness. And there are literally troves of books written on this stuff. Troves of books. The best ones, well, the most comprehensive one is the Bible. We're going to be reading some excerpts from their work. Actually, the excerpts I gave you are from the Handbook of Self-Determination Theory Research. This book here, you don't have to get it. I'm going to scan the chapters. There's only a couple chapters in here I'm going to have you read. Again, from the University of Rochester. So that will be some homework assignments. But you really don't have to read the homework, because I'm going to deliver in the lecture all of the content that I want you to understand. The homework assignments, the readings that I'm giving you are for depth. If you want to understand the science behind the things I'm telling you, if you want to be able to transmit the knowledge in the future or use the knowledge in the future, you should read those materials, because they're going to give you the depth. And I believe that getting access to information like this is way more powerful when you get it from multiple angles. So if you see a video from me and you see a video from someone else, and you see a video or you read a book from someone else, the more different angles you get on that idea, on those ideas, the more likely they're going to be to resonate with you, and the more useful to you they'll be when you go out into the world and you try to use this knowledge to lead. when you try to use this knowledge to make the world a better place through the products and services that you're chartered to build in whatever organization you're going to go and lead. Whether you started, or you join someone else's startup, or you go work in a big Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 company, these tools are only useful if you can actually go and use them. So I'm going to deliver them in a couple different ways. I'm going to give you some things to watch, some videos. I do recommend you watch the videos that I assign prior to class, and there are 2 for this class. One is a video from Daniel Kahneman, who wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow. He's probably the father, I consider him to be the father of behavioral economics, like why we do things that don't make economic sense. Like he's figured a lot of this stuff out. Him, Robert Sapolsky at Stanford, he wrote the book Behave and Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, 2 books I highly recommend. But really it's the science of human, of behavioral economics. Like why do we make bad decisions? So we're going to go into that a lot deeper in the lecture. And then another one by Brene Brown, because I believe when I share the first contextual model with you around how I think leadership should be defined, Brene Brown's work, she does grounded research in affect. She wrote the book Power Vulnerability of the Gifts of Imperfection. And she's got a great TED Talk. So those are very, very short talks. I highly recommend you watch the videos that I send you to watch so you get a little bit more of the context. All right, coming back to self-determination theory. So self-determination theory is this concept of autonomy, competence, relatedness. These are needs that we have as humans. And when these needs aren't met, we're less motivated. The more we meet these needs, the more motivated we are. So let me explain them to you briefly. We are going to talk about them a lot more deeply in the course, and there's a lot of reading material on it. If you don't believe what I have to say, you can go verify it for yourself. The first one here is autonomy, this concept of autonomy. This is about our sense of control over our own destiny, day to day, week to week, month to month. It's very important. Our sense of control, having control over something, having a steering wheel. It's very important. When our sense of autonomy is disrupted or shut down, it's very difficult for us to get motivated. If we feel like we're just showing up for a paycheck or we're showing up for an extrinsic motivation. So these are the intrinsic motivators. And the way, by the way, the scientists describe this concept of extrinsic motivation versus intrinsic motivation, which, by the way, extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation, you've probably heard those terms before. Those terms come from self-determination theory, okay? So extrinsic motivators, these are low on the totem pole here, extrinsic motivators. So if we think of motivation, first of all, motivation exists on a scale, and there is a thing called amotivation. Amotivation means you're actually motivated to do the opposite thing, to move in the opposite direction of wherever it is we're trying to go. So if you think about leadership, if we have good goals that intrinsically motivate people, we're pulling people towards some common good in the future. Okay. If there are people on our boat that are going the other way, we got to get them off the bus. And we're going to talk a lot about that in the first lecture. So if they're going the opposite way, we got to get them off the bus. And there are people you're going to find in business that there are always some people who are just not motivated by the same things that the rest of the group's motivated by. And those are folks you just got to get off the bus. All right, so that's at the lowest level. Somewhere in here is this extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation are things like, if I use Maslow's parlance, my physiological needs. Do I have what I need to eat, to breathe? Like these extrinsic, external things to me. Do I have a roof over my head? Will I have a roof over my head in a month or two? Do I have enough money to survive? Money is a classic example of an extrinsic motivator, but it rides this line because money gives us safety now, and there's a relationship between safety and autonomy. Money gives us the ability to meet our needs now, but in excess, it also gives us choice, freedom of choice in the future. So it rides this line. So when you get over a certain point, I think there's a number somewhere around $70,000 in America anyway. Once you hit 70,000, money becomes, this has been shown in various research studies, money becomes less of a motivator than things like competence and relatedness and purpose and mission. All right, so money plays rides this line between extrinsic and intrinsic because it gives us choices in the future. So if we save money, it makes us feel safe, gives us the safety, rides the line here too, in the future, okay? And autonomy lives somewhere down here, autonomy, competence, and relatedness, okay? And when we maximize these three things, and it's not really a hierarchy, it's not accurate for me to draw it like this, it's actually more accurate to draw it in a triangle. This triangle describes intrinsic motivation, which is everything on the right, intrinsic motivation, which is everything on the right up here. Intrinsic motivation, which by the way, is literally unlimited. It's literally unlimited. Think about that for a minute. You know this to be true for yourself. Like you only have so much energy to bring to your day, personally. When these needs are not met, you're working on these needs. If you feel like your autonomy's shut down, your motivation's shut down. If you feel like you're in a situation that's forced, like I'm only here because I have to be here. Like someone else is making me sit in this chair or do this thing. You're not authentically motivated. You can't be. It's just not the way human beings work. If you feel forced, like your autonomy is threatened, you are not there. There's very little opportunity for intrinsic motivation. Now, the other parts of this, competence, relatedness, I'll get into them in a minute. But this is fundamental to our intrinsic motivation, like our ability. So you wake up in the morning, sometimes you have high energy, but you're never fully maximally motivated. There's always something more that can get you up and get you going a little faster, a little harder. You know, you drink a cup of coffee in the morning to get going. Maybe you got a spring in your step. You can't wait to get to Sean's class to go learn some more things, right? We got a shared purpose. We want to learn how to lead better together. But you can always eke out a little more motivation. There's always a little more to get. You can never quite maximize it. And here's a proposition for you. I believe that your only unlimited resource in life is the creativity and the motivation. Creativity comes from motivation of the people you surround yourself with. The people that you surround yourself with, the leaders that you surround yourself with, that's your only unlimited resource in life. Sit with that for a minute. Now, if you surround yourself with people that you can motivate and that can motivate you, you have much better odds, right? Think about it. You have much better odds of developing something great in the world together. All right, so again, leadership is all about people. If you want to create innovation, if you want to create a culture of innovation, you got to surround yourself with people who are going to pull you up, that are going to tap into your creativity through these things. They're going to give you space. They're going to help you grow in competence, and they're going to be connected to the same purpose and help keep you and the people around them inspired. And leadership is about creating that environment so that they can go out and create that environment in their parts of the organization, and you can replicate it downward. Again, innovations only come from ideas. Ideas only come from people, and they only come from people who are motivated for your future, for the future of your success in the future. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. So on a maximize motivation, you can never quite reach that maximum. Yeah, there's a diminishing return. It's like an S curve. So you have your motivation goes to an S curve of some sort. It's asymptotic at the end, but you can never fully reach it. All right, let's go a little deeper on this stuff. So autonomy, competence, relatedness. This is the core of the course. Autonomy is about our control, our sense of control, not necessarily control over everything, only we have to know what we have control over and where we can place our creative energy. I've got a whole segment of the course that's going to talk about that. Competence is about growth and mastery. Like, I have to feel like my contributions matter and that I'm growing. Daniel, what's his name? He wrote the book Drive. It's a business book, but it's based on self-determination theory. Daniel Pink wrote the book Drive. It's based on this theory. He calls it mastery. So he uses a little different terms, a little more human language. He calls this mastery. Like, the most motivated people are those that are on some path to mastery of something, in a domain that's unique to them, and where they can add some value to the world. And you think about any domain of knowledge or skill, any sport, any trade, anything, any business, this concept of, hey, I want to be the best, and I want to continue to contribute to the future of society through my skill and mastery. This is about competence building. This is about continuous learning and achievement. We're going to do a whole class on that. And then relatedness. This is the concept of purpose. Okay, this is the concept of purpose. And at the end of the day, and it's multi-layered. So in the lexicon of self-determination theory, they talk about it as, I want to be cared for, and I want to care for someone. And in Maslow's parlance, he would have called it belonging. And then at the highest level, he would have called it, self-actualization. If you guys took Psych 101 and learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So self-actualization in Maslow's parlance was, hey, the things I'm doing matter to someone else besides me. And it's about relevance in life. Like, I am relevant. Before I die, so to speak, I'm achieving my maximum, like, I'm taking advantage of my maximum self. Like, I am adding the most amount of value to the world. Now, if you go back and read all the way back to like Nietzsche, or a man with a how, or a man with a why can achieve almost any how. Or Viktor Frankl's work and Man's Search for Meaning, or Edward Becker's work, and he's got Edward Becker's book, The Denial of Death, and he's got a whole psychological model of what is it that motivates people. So if you look at all human motivation, all of these researchers, Ed DC, Richard Ryan included, at the end of the day, this purpose thing always ends up being about other people. It's about how is the work I'm doing impacting other people? And it turns out there's science behind this. It's the science of empathy, which we're going to talk about in the first lecture a lot. It's the science of empathy. We are actually wired, biologically, neurologically wired to care for others. And we're actually evolving towards that. And when I say evolving towards, that's kind of a strange thing to say, but I mean it. Like, the most evolved parts of our brain, it turns out, are those parts of our brain that are involved in empathy. Like, the most recently to develop are those involved in empathy. And this makes sense if you think about it. If you put a little thought into that concept. Like, we are able to collaborate and coordinate and even corroborate towards some common vision, good or bad, because of our ability to communicate. And because of the development of our empathy, our empathic skills, our ability to read one another, our ability to talk to one another, to share emotion, to share cause, to coordinate, collaborate, and corroborate. So this concept of purpose is quintessential to understanding. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that in the course, talking about how do we construct an environment that causes more innovation to occur, that causes more innovation. Innovation, again, comes from people, and creativity comes when people are maximally motivated towards something. Okay? Cool. So let's talk about empathy. Now, empathy is a fascinating thing. There's a lot of work being done on it in all sorts of domains, in the business domain, in the science domain, If we think about Daniel Kahneman's work, behavioral economics, in his book, the book title is really compelling. It's Thinking Fast and Slow. And if you've watched the business landscape and the public speaking landscape over the last 10 years or so, you'll find, no less than 10, 15 highly prominent speakers, Simon Sinek, probably one of the most popular, included, that talk about this concept of the amygdala response. The amygdala, and controlling the limbic system, the amygdala response, so that in order to tactically improve your leadership abilities, you have to slow the brain down and take it out of that amygdala mode and put it into the prefrontal cortex mode, or the thinking brain mode. Daniel Kahneman's work is along the same lines. So in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, he basically says our thought processes are generally bifurcated. It's a little more complicated than that. And Robert Sapolsky's science, actually, if you want to read this book, you can take his whole course at Stanford, which I've done, on the biology of humans at our best and worst. It's a great book. He talks about the neurobiology and the neurochemistry of how this stuff works. And it's amazing in the science that's being done and the experiments that are being run to prove it. But essentially, what all of these folks have determined is that our brains have a bifurcated way of thinking. There's the fast brain and the slow brain. When our fast brain is acting, we make bad decisions. And we've all done it. And there's a million examples of how we've done it, and how we'll continue to do it. Even if someone points out to us that it's a bad decision, we'll still go and do it, just because of the way our brains work. Like, we can even know it's a bad decision, and we'll still go and do it. Las Vegas is a perfect example of that. Las Vegas exists because of Daniel Kahneman's theory of loss aversion. Like, that's the reason the whole place exists. Like, we are afraid, we value loss more than twice as much as we value a gain. So we go to Vegas and we get hooked on this thing of putting a little bit of money down and then chasing that money, and they built an entire city based upon some of these behavioral economics tweaks. A city in the middle of the desert that should not be there because there's nothing to support it. Everything has to be shipped in, even the water. All right, so context. So empathy is at the root of all of these things. So when we're in the amygdala brain and we're reacting in our fast mode, where typically it's like when we are on the plains, having to run away from lions before we evolved the empathetic parts of our brains. We make snap decisions, we make them fast, and we generally do it when we're feeling a little bit threatened. So when we have a little bit of a threat or a little excitement or something that, triggers an emotional response, that's what we get. And what I've learned is there's typically, when you're in that amygdala response, you're typically in fight, flight, freeze, or facade mode. I like to use the Fs. There's lots of other descriptions of this concept out there, but fight or flight, we've all heard of, right? Fight or flight or freeze, fight, flight, freeze, or facade mode. Fake it till you make it, right? And we've all done this, if you think about it. You get stressed about something and you say, yeah, I'll get to that. Yeah, I got you covered, whatever, just to get them off your back. Or you freeze, you don't say anything, cower, or you go the other way, or in the business environment, or you go to battle and you're like, no, you're wrong, and boom, 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 and you go into this mode. And typically, when you're in one of these modes, it's always a bad result. So what's always better, is if you slow yourself down when you see that you're in this mode, one of these modes, slow yourself down and engage the prefrontal cortex. All right, so here's first model I'm going to share with you. I uploaded a picture of this in the Blackboard. Here's how it works. This is called, let me use red. This is called cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy, or tactical empathy, is our controlled ability to recognize emotions of others at scale and to be able to influence the behaviors, the emotions and behaviors of others. So the tactical or cognitive ability to influence the behaviors of others. Some of us would define that as pure leadership, like you're influencing others. That's leadership, right? Our leadership capacity for influence. So cognitive empathy or tactical empathy. Tactical empathy. In the business lexicon, we call this emotional intelligence, EQ, and they've got, like I said, they've got some survey instruments for that. There's a bunch of books that have been written on it. Daniel Goleman's kind of the father of emotional intelligence. He's a Harvard professor. This was written at HBR. He's also written books on the same subject. He's written a bunch of them. Here's one called Social Intelligence, great book. I use his work a lot because he's really a smart, he's a very smart communicator and a great researcher. So tactical empathy, emotional intelligence, which by the way, they say is more of a predictor of success even than IQ. It's more of a predictor of success than IQ. If you have a high EQ, the ability to understand and influence the behaviors of others, you're more likely to be successful by most of our traditional measures of success, wealth, fame, power, whatever, than if you just have an IQ. Okay, that makes sense to us. But there is a correlation here. Like really high EQ people also happen to be high IQ people, which I think creates a dangerous situation. I'll explain. Actually, I'm not going to explain in this video, but I'll explain it in the lecture. All right. So it starts with, all science shows us, all these folks that are doing this research show that it starts with ourself. Fight, flight, freeze, facade. Sound familiar? When you're in that mode. So you learn to do this, but you don't learn to do it on your own. Here's the thing about empathy. If you're raised in a closet, you're not going to learn this. This requires other people in your life to teach you this. So you have these other people. This comes in our natural operating system. We generally call them our family. And if you're anything like me, you had a mom, and when you were little, your mom would point at you and say, Sean, use your words. Use your words. That was her PhD in momming, teaching her how to show you how to shut this amygdala response thing down so you can engage your prefrontal cortex, the occipital frontal cortex, and other parts of your brain that are involved in high empathy activities. Slow yourself down so you could learn how to get what you wanted out of the world. So you could learn how to get what you wanted out of the world. This is your mom and your family that taught you this. And as you went through life, the skill set hopefully continues to expand as you go through life. The skill set hopefully continues to expand. And you make some friends maybe, or you meet extended family members, and they teach you maybe some more sophisticated skills. And as you go from a small nuclear family into broader groups with bigger and more people in them, you have to learn these empathy skills if you want to get things done. If you want to make a mark on the world, if you want to change the world, and you want to change the way things are happening, you learn how to do this as you grow and as you go through life. And maybe you get a job someday, and maybe your spheres of influence, your community, maybe you actually run a company one day, and you're responsible for influencing all of these people, all the way down, all the people that you serve. That's an important word. You serve the people that you lead. You're responsible for influencing them, their behaviors, their actions, their words, right? And you're also responsible for influencing all the people that are not in your sphere of influence yet. So all those prospective customers that are out here. Yeah. And you're responsible for pulling them into your sphere of influence through your products, your services, your language. Okay. This is really important because it's not just about, so I'm going to call this our capacity for influence, our CI, our leadership capacity for influence. It's not just about our ability to influence these people when you get to this level of scale. It's not about your ability to influence the people around you. It's about your ability to scale influence through the entire organization, through all the people. Like whatever it is you're doing has to be replicable. Has to be replicable if you're going to scale it. It's about your capacity for scaling your influence, not just about your ability to influence. Okay? And there's only one real tool we have to do that. One real tool that we have to scale our influence, and it's our language. It's the words we use. It's the power of construction of language. It's our ability to communicate. It's what we're evolving towards. Okay. Now, that's half of the leadership equation in my humblest of opinions. The second half of the leadership equation lies and it's in a different form of empathy that we're going to call affective empathy. Affective empathy. I'm using purple for this. There is a method to my madness. Maybe by the end of the class, I'll get to it. All right, so the scientists that are working on affect and affective empathy, I think I have some reading for you that I had scanned in. Jonathan Gottman, he wrote the book, The Science of Trust. It's a really cool book. I love his TED Talk. He talks about, his research is mostly one-to-one, so it's attunement in couples. But I think it's science and it's telling, and it applies at the relationship level, even for organizations and business leadership. And another one is this I mentioned her earlier. Her name is Brene Brown. She is absolutely brilliant. Highly recommend you watch all of her TED Talks, read her books if you get the chance. But she's in Texas doing grounded research and affect and its impact on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in business. All right, so affective empathy. Affective empathy works much the same way. Affective empathy is about compassion. It's about compassion, or our leadership capacity for caring for those who we lead. Caring. Our leadership capacity for caring for those whom we lead. It's very important. It works the same way. It starts with yourself and your family. If you're in a healthy family, hopefully, teaches you at a young age how to care for each other and what it means to care for each other and how important it is in the context of our lives together. And as you go through life, your spheres of who you care for expand. Your friends, your extended family, just like the spheres of influence. Yeah. Your friends, your extended family. Okay. Your neighbors, your community, whatever. Your spheres, we all draw our circles in different places, but if you run a company, you become the CEO, you're responsible for caring for those who you lead, those who you serve, that you call your employees. And you know that. You're also responsible for caring for your customers and making sure you do right by them. Those people that you serve, that you call your employees, and those people that you serve, that you call your customers, you're responsible for caring. We're going to call that our capacity for caring. And it's really important. But it's not, again, just like influence, it's not about our capacity, our own caring. Yeah, of course we care for the people that work for us in our direct line. And inside of our spheres, or however we define our spheres of caring, it's not about our caring, it's about our ability to scale the caring of the people in our organizations. Our employees for each other to protect their spheres, our customers, our employees for their customers, and even our customers for each other once we pull them into our advocacy bubble. We'll talk about that in the course. So it's about our ability to scale our capacity for authentic and powerful caring. All right, I'm going to stop here. In the first lecture, I'm going to put these two things together and try to blow your minds with a new leadership model. Capacity for caring, capacity for influence as a definition of leadership. And then we're going to build the rest of the course off of these two concepts. Like, how do we cause more caring to occur? How do we cause more influence to occur through our products and services? And when we mold those things together, we create an environment where innovation magically happens because people are inspired. They're inspired when we do this well. And this is the nature of the course. All right, I'm going to end there. Any questions? You can reach me on Blackboard. My email address is sflaherty@itx.com or Sean, S-E-A-N, @itx.com or sflaherty@gmail.com. Or you can get me at on my Simon School address through Blackboard. And my cell phone number is 585-370-3704. Again, 585-370-3704. And you're welcome to text me anytime.